So why are we investigating network traffic? As forensics investigators, sometimes we're going to be called in to review packet analysis. We're going to locate that suspicious traffic, track it down, and say, here's the offender. Now, where I think it's going to happen mostly is in corporate investigations where there is malware on a machine, and that malware is under the control of an adversary on the outside. So this would be a bot or a zombie internally, and command and control signals were being sent from that box. So that would be live data transmission back and forth. We wouldn't actually be on the box in most cases because the adversary would detect us. What we would do is we would grab hold of the wire and listen to the transmissions going back and forth. That would give us an indicator of those transmissions going back and forth. That would give us an indicator of when that bot was communicating, or that zombie was communicating with the upstream command and control from the attacker on the outside. I know what you're saying now. You're saying, Dean, we could listen to the command and control structure of that particular information flowing across that wire, but guess what? Most of it's all encrypted at this point. They know that they could be listened to, so they do heavy encryption on that. And usually that encryption is being passed over HTTPS using the SSL protocol. They want to protect those commands as they're going in. Where you may get information is you may listen for the gophering mechanism, which basically what happens is we don't do command and control communication from a compromised machine to an attacker on the outside all the time. What happens is, like a gopher, it pops its head up, looks around, and says, oh, I'm going to send signals. Oh, here's your signals back. Okay, and it pops down into the hole again. So we may be listening for that activity of popping up and popping down, and that lets us know when the attacker's doing command and control sequences. Usually what happens is the gopher pops its head up, sends some instructions, receives some instructions, and those are maybe turned for time to attack another machine, or it may schedule this for a later date, and so it'll pop back down. So what we'll get is pop up, talk, get instructions, pop down, and then pop up again, and now take an action, either internally or externally, and start attacking. And then it pops its head back down again. So we investigate the traffic, but we realize we may not be able to see this information going back and forth. There is one exception to being able to investigate this traffic, and it's with a particular network setup. A lot of people are using what are called reverse proxies at this time, or de-encryption at the edge of the network. The tool that you would look at that does this is something called Bluecoat, and that Bluecoat proxy server actually says, okay, when signals are sent from the outside that are HTTPS, we're going to receive them on this end, we're going to decrypt that signal, inspect that traffic, re-encrypt that signal, and send it on to its destination. And so we create two sockets here, if you will, internal to that particular machine here, and external, and we get to inspect in that little tiny piece right there. Command and control bots won't tolerate this. They won't like this. And what's really nice about that is then the likelihood of infection is lower, not eliminated, but lower if you've got that tool in place from a security standpoint. I'm sorry I put on the security hat every once in a while, but we have to have suggestions as to what to do about in case of failure. So we investigate network problems because we want to uncover command and control from a malware standpoint. What about the collection mechanisms? This gets into a whole discussion over intrusion detection and where to put your listening devices. The listening devices themselves would usually be intrusion detection systems with hard drives on them and network cards. Those network cards would not have an IP address, but they would be connected to the network listening to all traffic. If you talk about a normal host, it's not in promiscuous mode. It only looks at two layer 2 addresses. It looks for a broadcast address, that's all Fs. Remember, your MAC address is burned into your network card, and that's going to be unique to your machine. So that's going to be 6 pairs of hex are going to be your real address, and then for the broadcast address, that's going to be 6 pairs of all Fs, not just hex. So that machine listens for those 2 signals. When we put it in promiscuous mode, it says, I'll take everything. And so that's what we do to intrusion detection systems, is say, everything that passes along this segment, I'll take it. Well, that means that the data needs to be transmitted across that segment. If you're deep into the network and you go to a fully switched network, well, all those different switch ports are going to create unique communication sockets between source and destination, and you want all that traffic. The switch is designed to not spread that traffic all over the place, except for when you take one of those ports and you say span or mirror. In that case, what you're saying is all the other ports on this switch replicate all that traffic through this one port here. And then that one port there is then isolated and sent back to your intrusion detection system. How many different switches do you have depends on how many different switch port analyzers or span ports that you actually achieve, and that means that you're going to be mirroring all that traffic. Now think about this. You've got a 48-port switch in your network. Each one of those is a 100 megabit connection. When you total up all that traffic, you're going to have a significant port, maybe a gigabit port, actually mirroring all that traffic because it's going to go way over 100 megabits. Those ports on your system, those uplink ports is usually what they are, they're very, very rare, they're very expensive, and your network people aren't going to let you have those for a very long period of time unless intrusion detection is integrated into their systems. So what ends up happening is we don't get to mirror at the switch level, we listen at the edge of the network so we can get the most traffic flowing back and forth. We miss all that communication that's going on internally, so if two hosts are communicating back and forth inside of here that are compromised, we're not going to have any visibility into that traffic. When we talk about network traffic, take a look here. Capturing, recording, and analysis of network events in order to discover the source of the security attacks. We're looking for the evil adversary. Capturing this network traffic over the network is simple as a concept, but when we talk about the theory of it, and when we talk about the practice of it, what we have to do is we have to get a lot of people to coordinate this activity. When we record network traffic, realize that we're mirroring all those packets to a particular location, we're going to want to look at the data in there, and that means that all the data that's flowing to and from all of your workstations and servers is all going to be replicated into this box. It's going to have a fairly robust drive to collect all this data. When we analyze the data, we're actually looking at this as the most critical task, and this is where your knowledge of networking really comes into play. This is when you had to do a Wireshark class, or you had to understand how it would work so that you could communicate, so that you could say, okay, I can find the attack very easily. I really do like Wireshark as a tool because it's an open source tool. It works well in a networked environment and in a wireless environment, so I always point to that one. As far as the automation is concerned, there's very expensive tools that get bolted on top of this from the vendors out there that do the network analyzation for you. But there's nothing like somebody who can actually read the packets and understand what's going on, even if it is abstracted by Wireshark. That kind of analysis is unique to a particular enterprise, and I don't think external experts can really give you deep details of this is a business process and it works, we accept that. You're going to have to communicate that to them so they could ignore the fact that, oh, we use this particular protocol on our network, because they're going to look at it and say that protocol is unique, that may be inappropriate. So working with third-party experts is kind of tough in this area. Network forensics data, okay? What you want to collect when you're dealing with intrusion detections is how intruders entered the network. Did they come over the wireless? Did they come over the wire? Did they come from a laptop that was taken out in the field, compromised, brought back, and plugged back in again? That's more of the attack. The mobile devices today that are being compromised outside of the defenses of your network that are being brought back in, those are the things that you really want to worry about. I think that's where I see a lot of attacks coming there. What's the path of intrusion? What's the technique that they actually used? And then pick up the packet traces. That's your evidence, unless you've got a honeypot in place, which we'll talk about very soon.